Good morning, everybody. Good to see Jaden, Cameron. Glad you guys are here. Let's get into this, huh? It's live. This is live right now. It's happening. Didn't know if I was gonna do this live, but my meeting got moved to a different time, so I was able to do this. So I'm glad. All right, let's see. Bring up the Bible here. All right. Make sure my microphone's working. Here I am. All right. Good morning, RLE. Good to see you. We are going to be running through Mark this morning. The book of Mark. And let's see. I think we're in chapter 4. Yep, we finished chapter 3 yesterday. We're going to finish the New Testament soon. If not, well, I don't think we can finish it today. I think there's 16 chapters in Mark, and we're on chapter 4. That means we have to read 12 chapters. No, 13 chapters, so I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll see what happens. Maybe each chapter will only be 10 verses long. Huh, that'd be awesome. All right. Anyway, good to see you guys. Let's have a word of prayer. I'll jump right into the reading. And this will be the last one at this location, I think. So I'm not sure what's going to happen next week. Here's the thing, though. Because I won't be working here any longer, I don't think. I mean, we'll see how the vote goes on Sunday. But I will not have access to send you guys, like, the links to your emails. So you will have to just come to this channel or subscribe to this channel if you want to keep reading the Bible with me in the morning. So just, if you're not subscribed to this channel already, go ahead and subscribe. And then, again, the emails aren't going to be coming out saying, hey, here's the link, here's the link, here's the link. You'll just have to sign on to my channel and then hit the bell notification. So, like, right about here, there should be a subscribe button. And then next to that, there's like a little bell looking thing. So if you hit the bell notification, it'll send you a push notification whenever I go live or upload a new video, and that way you'll know that I'm here. And you'll just sign into YouTube and it'll show you. All right, let's do it. Again, he began to teach beside the sea, and a very large crowd gathered about him, so that he got into a boat and sat in it on the sea. And the whole crowd was beside the sea on the land, and he was teaching them many things in parables. And in his teaching he said to them, listen, behold, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seed fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured it. And other seed fell on rocky ground, where it did not have much soil, and immediately it sprang up, since it had no depth of soil. And when the sun rose, it was scorched, and since it had no root, it withered away. Other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no grain. And other seeds fell into good soil and produced grain, growing up and increasing and yielding 30-fold, and 60-fold, and 100-fold. And he said, he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And when he was alone, those around him with the 12 asked him about the parables, and he said to them, to you has been given the secret of the kingdom of God, but for those outside everything is in parables, so that they may indeed see but not perceive, and they may indeed hear but not understand, lest they should turn and be forgiven. And he said to them, do you not understand this parable? How then will you understand all parables? The sower sows the word, and these are the ones along the path where the word is sown. When they hear, Satan immediately comes and takes away the word that is sown in them. And these are the ones sown on rocky ground, the ones who, when they hear the word, immediately receive it with joy, and when they have no root in themselves, but endure for a while. Then, when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately they fall away. And others are the ones sown among thorns. They are those who hear the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches and the desires for other things enter in and choke the word, and it proves unfruitful. But those that were sown on the good soil are the ones who hear the word and accept it and bear fruit, 30-fold and 60-fold and 100-fold. And when he said to them, Is a lamp brought in to be put under a basket, or under a bed, and not on a stand? For nothing is hidden except to be made manifest, nor is anything secret except to come to light. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. And he said to them, Pay attention to what you hear. With the measure you use, it will be measured to you, and still more will be added to you. For to the one who has, more will be given, and from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And he said, The kingdom of God, as if a man should scatter seed on the ground. He sleeps and rises night and day, and the seed sprouts and grows. He knows not how. The earth produces by itself, first the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the ear. But when the grain is ripe, at once he puts in the sickle, because the harvest has come. And he said, With what can we compare the kingdom of God? Or what parable shall we use for it? It is like a grain of mustard seed, which, when sown on the ground, is the smallest of all seeds on earth. Yet when it is sown, it grows up and becomes larger than all the garden plants, and puts out large branches, so that the birds of the air can make nests in its shade. And with many such parables he spoke the word to them, as they were able to hear it. He did not speak to them without a parable, but privately to his own disciples he explained everything. On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, Let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in a boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? They came to the other side of the sea, to the country of Gerasenes. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. He lived among the tombs, and no one could bind him any more, not even with a chain, for he had often been bound with shackles and chains. But he wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles in pieces. No one had the strength to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the mountains he was always crying out and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and fell down before him. And crying out with a loud voice, he said, What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me. For he was saying to him, Come out of the man, you unclean spirit. And Jesus asked him, What is your name? He replied, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he begged him earnestly not to send them out of the country. Now a great herd of pigs was feeding there on the hillside, and they begged him, saying, Send us to the pigs, and let us enter them. So he gave them permission. And the unclean spirits came out and entered the pigs, and the herd, numbering about 2,000, rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the sea. And the herdsmen fled and told it in the city and in the country. And people came to see what it was that happened. And they came to Jesus and saw a demon-possessed man, the one who had the legion, sitting there clothed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. And those who had seen it described to them what had happened to the demon-possessed man and to the pigs. And they began to beg Jesus to depart from their region. And as he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed with demons begged him that he might be with him. And he did not permit him, but said, Go home to your friends, and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, and how he has had mercy on you. And he went away and began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and everyone marveled. Notice this turn, this change. Jesus tells the guy to tell the people what God has done for him. Before, remember, he said, don't tell anyone, don't tell anyone, tell anyone. Now, he's saying, go and tell them what's going on. So something is shifting now in Jesus' ministry here. When Jesus had crossed again into the boat to the other side, a great crowd gathered about him, and he was beside the sea. Then came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and seeing him, he fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, My little daughter is at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her so that she may be made well and live." And he went with him. A great crowd followed and thronged about him. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and who had suffered much under many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. And she heard the reports about Jesus, and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If I touch even his garment, I will be made well." And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in him that power had gone out from him, immediately turned to the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And the disciples said to him, these guys are like, "Jesus, you're so dumb. You see the crowds pressing about you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" Oh, teenagers. And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, and fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace, and be healed of your disease." And while he was still speaking, there came from the ruler's house some who said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" But overhearing what they said, Jesus said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not fear, only believe." And he allowed no one to follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. And they came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue, and Jesus saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. And when he had entered, he said to them, "Why are you making a commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but sleeping." And they laughed at him. But he put them all outside, and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him, and went in where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age. And they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. He went away from there and came to his hometown. And his disciples followed him, and on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished, saying, hold on one second. So, this thing, he strict them to charge that no one should know. So he's in a different town now. So this is interesting. So from town to town, he's changing up his what he's telling people to do. Anyway, I just noticed that. Just stuck out to me. He went away from there and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. And on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James, and Joseph, and Judas, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him, and Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown, and among his relatives, and in his own household." And he could do no mighty works there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he went about among the villages teaching. Hey, Hannah. Yeah, so RLE asked, this is a good question. So why does Jesus not want anyone to know what he does sometimes, and he wants everyone to hear other times? Yeah, I think this is a good question. We could parse it out so that tell them how much the Lord has done for you. This is in this other country over here, right? Gerasenes, or whatever that country is. He's on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, so this is like 14 or 15 miles away. It could be 8 miles away. The Sea of Galilee is like 14 miles wide by like 8 miles long, or 14 miles long by 8 miles wide. And so it's possible that he wants this to spread here. It's also possible he cast this demon out from this guy, which people at the time were doing. There were guys who were like exorcists, and they were trying to cast out demons. And so maybe that's why that can tell. Here he raised someone from the dead. Like that's not normal. So maybe he's not quite ready for that to get out. And also, you got to remember, at this point, there's a huge crowd following Jesus. This one, there isn't a huge crowd, right? There's not a huge crowd here following him around. All that's here is this guy with the unclean spirit. One guy. So when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man. So there's one guy, not a huge crowd of people. And then the herdsman told the story. They came to see, and they saw the demon-possessed man. And those who had seen it described it, what had happened to the demon-possessed man and the pigs. They began to beg Jesus to depart from the region. Yeah, so, in the country. Yeah, this says some people came to see, right? Just people came. It doesn't say a huge crowd. So that could be a difference, too. That they don't even really know who Jesus is in this region. Here, in this story with Jairus, like, they know who Jesus is. When Jesus crossed again to the boat the other side, a great crowd gathered about him. So he's already, like, got all these people who are, like, knowing who he is and following him around. And this big crowd is, like, outside the house. And if when they came out of that house, they were like, Jesus rose her from the dead. Like, that might have been a catalyst for them to try to make him more than he should be. I mean, he's already got fame. And so maybe he's just trying to keep that fame squished down. Because he's not quite ready for the mission to be kind of completed, right? And he's the people don't realize what kind of Messiah he's going to be. So, yeah, Arlie, I don't know if it depends on how many people are there. I'm just trying to make a logical case for this. Hold on one second. Sorry, Brian was calling me. Yeah, so I'm just trying to make a logical case of what would make sense. I mean, I could study it deeper and look at, other passages and commentaries and try to figure something out. But off the kind of the cursory glance of what's going on here, that seems to make sense to me. That here things are getting a little bit out of hand in this city with all the people, and he doesn't want to become sensationalized. Here he says, tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. This is like a message of salvation. This is just a miracle here. So all right. So Brian's doing something at the church. Okay. Anyway. All right. So you got that? That's my guess. All right. Jesus rejected at Nazareth. Yeah, let's do this one. I think we'll finish this one and then I think we'll be done. He went away from there and came to his hometown, and the disciples followed him. And on the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue. And many who heard him were astonished, saying, where did this man get these things? What is the wisdom given to him? How are such mighty works done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of... Okay, we read all that. And he could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he went about among the villages, teaching. And he called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2, and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. And he charged them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not put on the 2 tunics. And he said to them, whenever you enter a house, stay there until you depart from there. And if any place will not receive you, and they will not listen to you, when you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them. So they went out and proclaimed the people should repent. And they cast out many demons and anointed with oil many who were sick and healed them. King Herod heard of it, for Jesus' name had become known, and some said, John the Baptist has been raised from the dead. That is why these miraculous powers are at work in him. But others said, he is Elijah, and others said, he's a prophet, like one of the prophets of old. But when Herod heard of it, he said, John, whom I beheaded, was raised. For it was Herod who had sent and seized John and bound him in prison for the sake of the Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because he had married her. For John had been saying to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." And Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted him to be put to death, but she could not, for Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he kept him safe. But when he heard him, he was greatly perplexed, and yet he heard him gladly. But the opportunity came when Herod, on his birthday, gave a banquet for his nobles and military commanders and the leading men of Galilee. For when Herodias' daughter came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guests. And the king said to the girl, "Ask me for whatever you wish, and I will give it to you." And he vowed to her, "Whatever you ask me, I will give to you, up to half my kingdom." And she went out and said to her mother, "For what should I ask?" And she said, "The head of John the Baptist." And she came in immediately with haste to the king and asked, saying, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter." And the king was exceedingly sorry. But because of his oaths and his guests, he did not want to break his word to her. And immediately the king sent an executioner with orders to bring John's head. And he went and beheaded him in prison, and brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard of it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught, and he said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a desolate place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized him, and they ran there on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. And when he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. When it grew late, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send them away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat." But he answered them, "You give them something to eat." And they said to him, "Shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat?" And he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." And when they had found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then he commanded them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups, by hundreds and by 50s. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and said a blessing, and broke the loaves and gave them to the disciples to set before the people. And he divided the 2 fish among them. And they all ate and were satisfied. And they took up 12 baskets full of broken pieces and of the fish. And those who ate the loaves were 5,000 men. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida. And while he dismissed the crowd, and after he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. And when evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. And he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the 4th watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astonished, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. When they crossed over, they came to the land at Gennesaret, and moored to the shore. That means they tied up the boat like on a rope. And when they got out of the boat, the people immediately recognized him and ran about the whole region and began to bring the sick people on their beds to wherever they heard he was. Whenever he came, in villages, cities, or countryside, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and implored him that they might touch even the fringe of his garment. And as many as he touched were made well. All right, we're going to stop there for today. Because, we can't get through another chapter in 4 minutes. Okay, so Brett said, let's see. Isn't this Jesus, Mary, and Joseph's son? Didn't he grow up here? He played with our children. When they found out, in this case, means when they found a little boy's meal. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's funny. Like all these people are there, and the only food that's there is like 5 loaves and 2 fish. Um, pretty funny. Pretty funny. Nobody brought any food. All right. Yeah. So we're gonna stop there for today. Let's mark off. Let's see. How far did we get? 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, these chapters are longer, 56 verses. So, yeah, we didn't make it super far. 3 chapters, but that's all right. That's all right. 4, 5, and 6. We're getting there. So next week for sure we'll finish the book of Mark. Like I said, I don't know what. That's what we're looking like there. So you can see we've just got this right here left, and then the New Testament will be done. And then we read a lot of this. You can see that. So, but we still got a lot to go on the Old Testament. Yeah, I don't know what next week's going to look like. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay? Cool. Well, I thank you for that, Arlie. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been my pleasure to serve the youth here at Fellowship. And I hope that I get to continue to serve God for many years. And you guys are all welcome to come by and visit me whenever you want. At Bryant Street if I end up over there. So, Brian Drummond also has a youth group that meets on Thursday nights every other week. And you're welcome to visit that too. So if you're not helping at Theme Thursday or doing something on Thursday nights, you're welcome to come over and visit Brian D. And you can check the Bryant Street website for the days that meets. All right, well, thanks for hanging out with me today. I am going to try to clean up all the youth stuff before I get out of here and organize it a little bit. So I'll see you guys Wednesday. I will be there Wednesday. Whether I get hired at Bryant Street or not, I'll be there Wednesday. All right? So thanks for hanging out with me this morning. Peace.